the 29th of uh, August. We're going to share something about the recap some of the family history roadshow that we did in Far West today. Uh, I'd like to, I'm going to share some points that we made from the slides. And by the way, these slides are available on the family website under Far West. There are three sets of slides there. The first one is about the organization itself and why road shows, and the second is about the collaboration. Mm. All right, but I'm live broadcasting, so do you can you hear me now? Okay, carry on. So the so let me just share a few thoughts about the, the the concept behind the road show, and then we'll go from there. Uh, the We chose as a theme for the road show. It's about the dash. The dash meaning the little dash on the tombstone between birth and death, and trying to gather information about the person and their life. Uh, and we chose the idea of a road show versus a reunion because the very nature of the organization, that it is so large, it's impossible to have a single reunion or get everyone together to do that kind of thing. So the other things that we decided was that using the roadshow model, that we would use the idea of showing and sharing the information that was available in, as you would, in a PBS antique roadshow, where we're showing and sharing ideas about pictures, antiques, and personal stories about the lives of our ancestors, and to share ideas that may be useful in doing that. The third idea of thought was that by sharing tools and ideas, we could help families, pieces of the family, get together and work together with these tools and ideas to strengthen and share in the personal family. Part of the emphasis of the reality of this was the fact that while the roadshow in Far West was primarily focused on William Taylor, William was just one of 11 children, and all these children had large posterity. In fact, there was 109 grandchildren at this level. So we looked at this and said, okay, we'll look at the diversity that we have here, and try and have a roadshow, in this case, primarily focused on one of the family, but with the reality that there are many that could use the same idea. In fact, the road show, which we are calling a Family Heritage Celebration, that will occur on the 5th and 6th of September in the Bowling Green area, we'll be focusing on the majority of the other children and their descendants. It may be interesting for everyone to know that William Taylor himself with his 14 children, ended up having 188 grandchildren himself. Huge. So, and of course, some of those had small families, others had as many as 30, 27, so forth. So there was large groups when we're working on gathering descendants and gathering stories, mementos, and so forth about each of the family lines. Uh, I want to share some statistics that we shared there, just to give you a little order of magnitude of Joseph Taylor's descendants. In uh, in our database, we have 73,000 descendants of Joseph Taylor and Sarah Bess. That's direct line. Of those, 56,000 of them, 40, are part of the Joseph Taylor line. Of that, there are, in our records show that we had at least 21,000 of them have had an event happen in their life in Utah. That also suggests the difference between the 56,000 and the 21,000, that there's been a significant migration of his Joseph Taylor's Sarah Bess, William and Elizabeth's family movement. It's indicative of what has happened with the other families as well, with regard to their dispersal across the United States. William had a son, Joseph Taylor. We have 12,000 descendants of Joseph Taylor, and I am a descendant of one of his oldest sons, Joseph Allen Taylor, and the database has over 3,000 descendants of him. My grandfather has over 300. So when we talked about the size of the organization and what we needed to do, we say that there is no way, but what we have to look at the organization with its pieces. And it's really significant to me to that tree that we use for the emblem of the Taylor Family Association. It's now scientifically proven that young people, if they know something of their past, will be able to handle the future better. So the tree is a very symbolic thing that we can't do without the roots coming through the branches and to the leaves. And the leaves likewise, if they're not providing help, the tree will likewise die. So there's a very synergistic relationship of both the living and the dead, and we need to be able to have them feed one another information, knowledge, and so forth. So, and that, of course, has been the thrust of the organization, but gathering information about the dead, as well as gathering information about the descendants to be able to share. So our big challenges have been in gathering the resources and tools, and that's what we kind of wanted to do as a part of the roadshow, was talk about resources and tools and things that we can do to help you in gathering your piece, a part of the family that you can use to share with individual family members. Basically, what we're saying is that each family is responsible for documenting and gathering the stories and so forth of their own uh, group, and then uh, we're we'll talk about at another time some of the collaboration tools and the things that we are thinking about sharing to use to be able to share among families to uh, uh, enrich the knowledge base, I guess you'd say, the library of information about uh, the families. We've looked at the idea of the slicer uh, handling, you might say, a twig or branch of the tree as a model, and we're more and more looking at them in terms of being not only in their slicing role of handling the data, but actually being watchmen and becoming real authorities on their piece of uh, family, the family tree, if you would, so that they can share that knowledge with others and watch what's going on in other databases. In that regard, let me just do a little aside about that thought. There's been major changes occur in the family search system with recent acquisition or partnering of Ancestry.Quest, MyHeritage, uh, and so forth. All of these plus Family Search all have tree capabilities. So it's a real challenge to be able to not have family members go in, find some information, and start their own tree or gather information which hasn't been proven. So we need to be able to look to our organization and to members of the family that says, okay, so and so is going to be keep the authoritative information. We're going to feed sources and information about the person to this individual. Ron Taylor, our database manager, gave me an interesting example. He says, Gordon, he said, you know, if someone goes into Family Search and makes the changes in some dates there, and before our watcher catches it, another family member comes in and takes that information and draws it down, we can end up perpetrating all kinds of errors in the family system. So we have to do watch capability of these various systems that are around. Most all of them use that wiki approach. I don't know if all of you are aware of what the wiki approach is. It's an open system or database which allows anyone to make a change in the system. And it's very difficult to say who is right unless you're documenting them with source information. So our challenge is to try and, to the best of our ability, maintain purity of the information which we have. That's why we maintain our own separate file, and we ask that the slicers or those who are participating in managing pieces of the file become authorities, and they don't make any changes unless they have a documented, comfortable, secure knowledge of what they're adding to the file is in fact correct. So part of what we did during the roadshow, and we'll talk more about this in following YouTube sessions, is we explored various technologies that could be used to help gather uh, material, sources, stories, documents that could be used for the family. And we also looked at establishing some levels of policy with regard to information that we're looking for in this circular process of updating family information. We don't ever see anyone name having all the information, living or dead. That there is more information to be added and that it would just go in a circular process, adding and uh, hope in some cases maybe correcting, but adding information about a person's life. I'll give you an example. We may start with birth, death, and marriage of a person. Just throw it in. You know it's there, and then come back with the documents, the marriage certificates, the birth certificates, the death certificates. Second round. Then there are other events that go on in the person's life, which we were focusing on as a part of the roadshow. Uh, Information about their life we consider historical. Uh, there are various models that can be used to talk about this. One example is the idea of the old concept. It's not really old, but it's not being currently discussed much. The Book of Remembrance uh, that Malachi talked about in the Old Testament, where we're recording information that he felt was pertinent to his posterity. Same thing with Abraham, and it uh, used by members of the Latter-day Saint Church in early times to keep basic historic information, generally of spiritual or emotional or value character information that would be useful to be passed on to other uh, family members in the future. So we're concerned about doing that. Some of these systems do not have parameters about what to put in. Same thing is true with regard to some of the media types. Pictures. Uh, we have had some of our members who suggested that they would like to put in albums of pictures associated with their family member. We don't think that's quite necessary as far as what we're liking to collect. We would see putting in some basic pictures that span their life and maybe several historic pieces that would need to be document events and history. So that's what we're seeing. So uh, that's where we planned to go with the system. We'll spend more time talking about these other things as we go forward. But we'll sign off with the broadcast for right